You're wearing a post office shirt and you're not sending it.
I'm sending it, dude.
No, you're not, bro.
Oh!
What is good, YouTube? My name is George. Welcome to another video. I was about to say I hope you are still doing well during the quarantine, but I feel like at this point we're all going crazy, myself included. So I hope you are doing slightly better than terribly. So do you guys remember as a kid when you would just obsess over a trick and you would literally try it for your entire skate session every single day? And even when you weren't skating, you were thinking about the trick. And even when you're sleeping, you're dreaming about the trick. But then as you grow older, you start to diversify your skateboarding. Your sessions get shorter as adult responsibilities mount, and you just don't spend all day on singular tricks anymore because you kind of decide that there is no time for that. Because same. However, due to the quarantine, my skating style has regressed back to the kind of skating I did as a kid when I would go out into my driveway or the street out front every single day and practice the same trick all day for hours. During the quarantine, the only place I've been skating is my neighborhood park in this volleyball court, which has perfect flat ground. And pretty much every session I have been trying backside 360s for hours. And it has definitely hit the point where I'm starting to dream about backside 360s. This is one of those tricks that I have been trying for over 5 years. I actually kind of gave up on the back three and stopped trying it outright and just sort of assumed that I would never learn it, that it just wasn't in my genes or something to whip a back three around. But I did buy my first pair of jeans. I'm just kidding. I need to learn the back three. I think it's one of the sickest looking tricks in skateboarding, period. I am going to fully commit myself to learning the back three. I'm going to try it every single session and just never give up until I have this trick on lock. I don't care if it takes another 2 years. So I decided to make this video completely nerding out about the backside 360. I'm going to look at every piece of footage I can find from my past where I try to land backside 360s, and I'm going to analyze what I think I'm doing wrong. Then I'm going to watch every single backside 360 trick tip on YouTube. I am desperate. After that, we're gonna go to the freaking volleyball court. I'm going to put my heart and soul into trying to land a valid, perfect, controlled backside 360. And I can't just land it. I have to feel like I know what I'm doing. I think that's the really important part. So I went ahead and searched through my YouTube channel and my Instagram page to find what I'm pretty sure is every single filmed backside 360 that I've ever done. Let's see where I was at in 2014. I still slip out exactly like this when I'm trying back three sometimes because I'll be focusing so hard on trying to whip the whole thing around. When I land on 2 feet, I'm actually so surprised and not ready to land and roll away that my weight is just off and I slip out pretty hard. It's crazy that I'm so close here in this video and I still don't have them on lock. Just shows how difficult this trick is. That was a pretty good back three, honestly. I've got my back foot kind of on the toes, hanging off, and it almost looks like I'm about to do a tray flip, which is pretty similar to the foot positioning that I still use when I'm trying backside 360s. Something I've been really paying attention to lately is trying to keep a straighter back when I'm trying this trick, because I think hunching and leaning forward like that actually makes this trick more difficult. But overall, my body language is already looking pretty good in 2014, which makes me question why I still can't do this trick. Whenever I see somebody doing a proper backside 360, their back foot just looks glued to the tail, and that's something that I really struggle with. So let's take a look here. And honestly, in this particular one, it looks pretty stuck the whole way through, which is kind of surprising. Have I gotten worse at back threes? Wow. I feel like, watch this be the best one. Yeah, it's like just barely catching on the edge of my foot there. Fascinating. You can see in some of the previous attempts that my foot comes straight off the tail, which is probably why I lack the control to land it. So honestly, I thought this 2014 back three was going to be a lot worse. And honestly, that was sort of discouraging to see how good it was. But let's continue. So here we are in November 2016 on my Instagram. I kind of like that one. It looks kind of sick. But man, look how far off my back foot is on the tail on that one. Actually, in all of these attempts, my back foot is just flying away from the tail, looking way more out of control than the back three from 2 years prior. It's almost like my back foot immediately comes off of the tail, but then it will reconnect when the rotation is at 180 degrees, which is really interesting. But I know when I see other people do it, the back foot is connecting the whole time. I almost feel like it's something with my weight, or maybe I literally just need to extend that foot more, because if it's completely extended there, it's going to be in contact with the tail, or maybe I need to scoop it harder. And yeah, you can see with all of these, I just land so out of control. So I'm editing right now, but I'm jumping in because I noticed something about my front foot on this particular day of attempts. Look at how active of a roll my front foot has here. I'm sliding it up. It almost looks like I'm about to flick off like a backside flip. And I think the roll of the front foot here is why the back foot comes off. And it's almost like it throws the board down a little, which sends it back to the back foot. Take a look at the front foot in the 2014 attempts. It literally comes straight up and off the board immediately, which allows the back foot to do its thing. So I don't know why I just totally forgot that in these more recent ones, but nowadays my front foot is coming straight off, and I believe that is the right way to do it. Onwards to another Instagram post, April 2018. There's that violent slip out. And honestly, a pretty nice back three. I kind of land and stop. Let's take a look at that one frame by frame. I feel like still I'm hunching over a little too much. I feel like I could be throwing my arms a little bit more drastically, but the back foot stays pretty close here. It looks like it's just in contact with the toes. And yeah, that one actually comes around pretty nice. If I had maybe been going a little faster, had more confidence in the landing, that one might have been pretty perfect. Here's one from January 2018. So this one actually came before the one we just watched. I actually remember this back three really well because I did it in a different way. So I was skating Tompkins with my friend Brett, and he has a nice back three, so I was really watching to figure out how he does them. Busted his ass. He just looked so ready to bring it around at the end and land with a lot more control. So I remember when I was trying the back threes this day, I would scoop, but then immediately take the weight off of my toe side and start shifting back. So I was like almost sitting back on it on my heels. And I think that's what let me actually pivot this one around like this. It almost looks like I'm power sliding. So it has that nice full back three look to it, even though technically my wheels touch down at 270 degrees. Think about if I'm leaning on my toes, I'm just gonna pitch forward and have to step off the board. But if I'm leaning back on that heel side, then I can just finish it up, no problem. All right, here's one from November 2018, and I remember being super proud of this one. Often think back on it as one of the best flat ground backside 360s I've ever done. It was in this Halloween edit. So I like this one because it has a proper roll away. So still I'm bent super far down. You could tell I'm just trying to put as much power into the spin as I can. I think at this point is where I started trying to think about the back foot like an impossible, almost like the trick is an impossible with a 360 body varial. I'm still looking behind me by the time I pop. I almost feel like it could be even more exaggerated. Looks like the back foot comes off, but then it reconnects again, and managed to get that one all the way around. Upper body comes around and I roll away. Pretty happy with that back three. As you can see, I'm deep in my head with this trick. I got all these theories, all these thoughts. I actually did watch every single back three trick tip on YouTube. So where'd my hat go? Anyways, the first trick tip we're going to watch together is by Yoda the Death Shadow. Funny enough, I remember watching this guy's trick tips way back in the day.
Here today to teach you guys a hard-ass motherfucking trick.
It's always reassuring when the people making the trick tips talk about how hard it is, because it makes me feel a little bit better about struggling so much with this trick.
In order to learn the trick itself.
Look at that.
So first, if you can't backside ollie, go fuck yourself. Because you need to go learn that trick. Good foot placement leads to faster rotation and an increase in balance.
His foot positioning is just like the tray flip, similar to mine.
Keeping in mind that I would use my front foot to help stabilize and have the board under my feet at all times during the rotation.
It's so interesting right there at the point where the board pops. It's like you're so twisted. And look at where he's at 180 degrees. It's like you can tell his weight is still on that back foot, so that when he comes around and the board touches down at 270, having the weight on that back foot lets him just naturally pivot around. And you really don't even notice the pivot that much when you play it at full speed.
If I had both feet facing in front of me and I looked at the nose of my board.
Interesting, look at the nose of the board.
board not only popped, it followed my movement.
Wow.
So the first step I recommend is this one.
I had watched this trick tip previously, and I actually started doing these backside 360 pivots on the back wheels, and I would really focus on keeping my back straight, because look at this dude's posture when he's spinning his back threes. He's super straight up and centered. I definitely neglect my upper body when I try back threes.
You want your body to lead the board and not vice versa. The easiest way to do that is to look at the front of your board. Keep your back as straight as possible to have a better equilibrium and a centered gravity point. When you're about to pop the trick, you're going to bend your knees, and throw your shoulders in the desired direction depending on your stance.
That was a great trick tip. That guy was super funny, and I think there are some key insights. Keep your back straight, stay centered over the board, lead with the upper body, and just kind of expect the pivot. So this is a braille trick tip actually featuring Chris Chan. Chris's back threes in this trick tip have the most noticeable pivot.
Hey, my name is Christopher Chan, and today I'm going to show you how to do backside 360s.
See how you can really notice the pivot on his? All right, that one actually went a long ways. Well, this is interesting. So Chris's back foot comes off here and reconnects at the halfway point. So that's a pretty much fully rotated backside 360, but it's not as in control as the ones that he is pivoting. Fascinating.
Backside 360 turn with your body, and your board goes with you.
Thanks, Chris.
You can do like backside 180s and then land on the tail and revert. That's also really helpful. This is the backside 180 revert.
So that backside 180 revert, it's not too far off from the first back three he did in this video, but I think since the pivot was super flat and level, that's what lets you get away with it and makes it count. I feel like I'm learning that the pivot is okay if you produce the illusion that you've done the whole 360 in one fluid motion.
You're gifted genetically and you got the backside 360 full way, then that's awesome too.
Maybe you do have to be gifted genetically to back three the whole way.
It's a little bit more of a pop than a scoop actually.
More of a pop than a scoop. Honestly, I feel like Chris is on a little bit of a different wavelength. You know, we all arrive to learning tricks in different ways, which is so interesting. All right, next one we're gonna look at is how to backside 360 with 𝓂𝕠𝕔𝕚𝕒 from the Ride channel. I'm pretty sure the Ride channel has given me a copyright strike before, so if the video cuts out, that is why.
Hi, this is 𝓂𝕠𝕚𝕒. We're in LA, and I'm going to try to teach you guys some tricks today.
So this back three is just insane. Also, look at this man's pants. So in no world am I ever going to get a backside 360 this good. He's going like 3 feet in the air. His board is completely vertical when he pops. It is totally stuck to the back foot the whole way through, and he pretty much rotates it 360 degrees in the air. I'm not going to even set my expectations close to this high, but what a beautiful back three.
Back foot like you'd have for an all impossible or pressure foot. They're kind of all in the same scoop category.
It's actually an insightful point. I've found that people with a strong impossible and pressure flip tend to be able to figure out the backside 360 much more easily than people who do not have those tricks. I can't do a good impossible, and I've never done a pressure flip. Maybe it makes some sense that I've struggled to find out how to use that pocket to stick the board to my back foot.
So you go like that, and you just take that. And
it's quite funny how he's straight up looking forward when he's rolling up to the back three. He's like,
scrape it, wind your shoulders, and spin around.
It's funny how like these official Ride channel professional trick tips, they really barely explain the trick. These videos tend to be like just a 3-minute flex of how good you can do the trick.
It's a lot in the wind up and the scoop, and the back foot position is pretty much all that trick is.
Let's move on to the last one. This one is from Paul Taylor. Look at this dude's body language. It's pretty striking.
I promise you that it's a super fun trick once you get it down. Also, it's...
Whoa! Look how much his upper body leads. It's crazy. I'm trying to imagine doing this. Like, my upper body is already so far into the rotation, and I'm looking that way too. If I'm doing that before I even pop, it's almost like you're already starting to spot your landing. Huh.
It's really easy to be in full control of it with a little bit of practice.
And he's not even pivoting at all.
So now that you hopefully believe that I have the qualifications to teach this, let me start with some prerequisites.
Maybe thinking about this arm and throwing it behind you like that will give the upper body momentum to finish that back three rotation.
Since now we have foot placement down, we can actually get to doing the trick.
Jesus Christ, it just comes around.
I don't... Twist your shoulders, or what some people call coiling. This is actually the most important step in doing a backside 360. If you don't coil and then throw your shoulders and arms, you'll never get a full.
I'm really excited to see how I can incorporate my shoulders and upper body more, because I think that's what's holding me back.
The way to get the board to follow is sort of like gripping it with your back foot as you spin. This is why you have to put your back foot in the pocket of the board.
Do you all see this man's back threes? So I'm also seeing that he's landing with his weight on the back foot like everybody else. His back is pretty straight. It seems like his weight is very straight over the board and not so much leaning forward, which I suffer from. I can't get over that upper body language. It's just so far ahead of the spin before he even pops, which I think is why his back threes look so controlled and so completed. I'm definitely going to be trying to visualize these backside 360s when I go out and try them, which I think we're going to do right now. So keeping all of this in mind, I went to the volleyball courts and tried probably about another 100 to 200 backside 360s, but instead of making you sit through all those attempts, I picked a representative sample to look at the progress I made and the work that still needs to be done.
Yo! Did I get that?
So during this session, I alternated between two ways of thinking about the back three. The first one is to intentionally pivot. These start off looking pretty soggy because I land on two wheels and the pivot is very apparent. However, as I got more comfortable with these, I would start trying to land them with four wheels on the ground, still doing a pivot, but trying to make it look more like a power slide. And I actually think this makes the pivot method back threes look pretty good, almost to the point where I'd be happy with them. Not too bad at all. And I definitely think that I have a lot of control when I'm doing the back threes with the pivot. So I think there's something important to be learned about how I lean my weight when I'm intentionally trying to pivot them. My back foot energy is perfect. It's completely stuck to the tail. This one comes a little bit more than 180 and then reverts around. Not bad. So the other method that I think about when doing the back threes is just trying to whip the whole thing around. And this is where I start to lose control. So in a lot of these attempts, I'm definitely still leaning way too far over my toes and leaning forward. Look at my starting position and then look how far forward I end up. Yeah, take a look at this one. It looks super perfect, but then I land and I pitch forward. But think about if I was leaning more on that back foot, more on the heel side, that would have been a perfect backside 360. However, in a lot of them, you could tell that the way I'm leaning on my back foot is improving. This one, for example, I don't land it the full rotation, but I just naturally end up power sliding it. And you could tell when I land here that I have enough weight on that back foot for that to naturally happen. And here's one that is close. I land 270, start to pivot, but then I pitch forward again. All right, and by far the most common problem that I had during this session and that I continue to have with the back threes is my front foot does not keep up with the rotation. And what I started to decide is that it's not just my front foot, it's actually my entire upper body. So my board is doing a perfect backside 360, but the problem is my board is leading my body and my body is behind. That's why my feet almost land facing forwards. My front foot is not even close sometimes. I really feel like if my upper body wasn't behind in the rotation, that I would be landing a lot of these. So that's when I really started focusing on throwing my arms, looking behind me, and just trying to get my upper body ahead of the rotation. And when I started doing this, I started sticking a lot of them. So you can see that I'm still a little bit behind because my feet aren't landing parallel with the board, but it is a lot better. And something I'm noticing when I watch this attempt is like my eyes are looking backwards, but I wonder if at this point I should start looking towards the front of the board in order to be more ready to land it. And I think that will actually assist with my upper body completing the 360 rotation if at this 180 point I shift my eye line from here to up here. Because see, I land and I'm so twisted and not ready for it. But yeah, I just super focused on throwing my upper body, trying to get it ahead of the board. And this started working quite well. I ended up getting a few. This would have been a nice one. Again, I think if I was just leaning on my heels more, this one would have been perfect. But you see how the control I have with the pivot method starts seeping into this full whip method, because here I'm landing 270 and I'm leaning on my back foot enough that it starts coming around just like the pivot method. But for whatever reason, when I'm trying to fully whip it around, I lose a little bit of balance and control, and my weight is just off, and it results in things like this. So yeah, a bunch of sticks, and then I finally started rolling away from some that were fully rotated. Some of them are still sloppy on the landing, but I can see it in my upper body. I'm just a little bit more ready to roll away. I mean, you can still see when I land on this one, like my front foot is still behind, which I think indicates my upper body is still behind. Look how it just barely sneaks on there. But think about if my upper body is just a little bit more ahead, I may be able to land these on the bolts with control. My back foot is definitely doing the right thing in these attempts. And I think this one is the best back three I've ever done in terms of control. There's a little bit of a tic-tac, but my upper body just nice and in control finishes up that rotation. And I'm super stoked on this one. Honestly, watching this really makes me want to go back out and try some more. My key takeaway is that trying to get my upper body ahead, like swinging so hard so that my upper body is literally as rotated as I can get it before I even start the scoop. I really think that helps sync up the rotation of the upper body and the skateboard, and that is what I'm going to be focusing on moving forward. For now, I definitely plan to keep doing some of the pivoted ones because I just really think that my weight is perfect. Like, I'm totally in control of these, and I almost think if I can just merge the whip method with the pivot method, finding the balance and control of the pivot method with that just a bit of a harder scoop of the whip method, I think that can bring me to a really perfect backside 360, and I'm super eager to continue on this journey. Back threads. I'm just trying to find the words, you know?
What's good, YouTube? My name is George.
I got a fortress in front of the camera. Juicy primo. It do be messy though.